Hey folks, Grant from Gunspot here for the Armory Life. In today's video, we're going to be torture testing the Trijicon RMRcc. Okay, so before we start beating the crap out of this thing, we're going to confirm our zero, and periodically we're going to reaffirm that it's maintaining zero after some abuse is levied. So let's get it initially on paper. A little bit different ammo than what I originally zeroed that RMRcc with. This is my first shot. I'm sure that was mostly me. The other four pretty much on. We're gonna not mess with the zero, seeing how it's zeroed for my ammo at home, but you can see it's close to being on the X. Okay, so our first torture test is going to be a water submersion. Nothing really extreme here in maybe a foot of depth by what the optic is spec'd at, but we're going to put it in, leave it for 5 minutes, and then we're going to see if we have a failure or not. Okay, so actually more than 5 minutes has expired, probably 6 or 7, but we're gonna, of course, pull the gun out. We're gonna go and reconfirm zero. I'll get a nice little cooling shower as I do it, and let's get her done. Okay, so got back from the water submersion test, shot the same target that we did before. You can see it's holding right in that same area, minus that flub on my part with the first group. It's not lost any zero. I was able to brighten the dot and dim it back down. The controls are still working as you would hope they would be and as Trijicon designed them to be. Okay, so for this next bit of torture test, we've taken 2 magazines. Every other round is a dummy round, which is gonna have to, or force me to manipulate the slide. Now, what I'm going to use to manipulate the slide is I'm gonna rack off of the railroad tie here. So it's going to get some 15 repetitions of off of the barricade. I'm gonna try to use a pretty overzealous amount of force just to simulate. It's going to be varying contacts on the optic itself, so simulating maybe a worst case scenario, maybe one hand's tied up with an opponent and having to get the gun back into the fight from a stoppage. So here we go. Two mags in, I see very minor surface rubbing off on the optic is all. There's not even a coloration change in the anodizing or the black coating on the Trijicon. Glass is obviously still in perfect shape. Dot brightness didn't change at all. So let's go up and now see if the zero has been maintained. Okay, so after the manipulation, we were already shooting on that left side of the X. It's still there. 15-yard group has been maintained through 15 one-handed off the optic manipulations. So we're ready to go on to the next bit of torture testing. Okay, so the next bit of torture testing we're going to do is a standard drop from basically shoulder height. I'm not a big fan personally of this particular torture test because sometimes I've seen it hit the front of the gun before it rocks back on the optic. Just depends on how the weight of the gun balances out. It's going to be tough to make sure the force goes on the optic versus something else first, taking away some of the momentum or, you know, true torture testing. But I'm going to do my best to make sure it hits the optic first. So dropped it, made sure it hit the optic first, put a pretty good ding on the corner on concrete, shoulder height, no glass breaking that I can tell. There's no flaking or chipping or any, it's like brand new other than the spot that it hit. So we're gonna put 5 rounds down range, see if it maintains 0. Okay, so following up to the drop 5-shot group, we do have a slight point of aim, point of impact change from where it was before. And so to remind you, we were about a magazine width closer to the X, just on that left side, and now we're just a little bit further left. Obviously, it's holding with 5 shots at 15 yards. Interestingly enough, though, the impact was heavy on the left side of the optic, and that's the direction that it shifted. Now, could it be in the mounting solution? Maybe, although we used a good quality C&H Precision mount. I followed their federal government mounting procedure to the letter, so I don't think you could have gotten any better in the mounting solution than what we have here, but we do have a slight change. Okay, so our next test is going to be a side impact, and why this has been included. In my research, most of optic failures in law enforcement have occurred with the gun in the holster, suspect officer wrestling, and body weight of the two laying on the side profile of the optic causes the glass to break. We still don't have any glass breakage or any deformation of the glass or flaking or chipping or anything that I can tell. So this may be a truer, more directly applicable to real life test. So we're gonna lay it on gravel. I'm gonna use a portion of a cinder block that we had here on the range to drop on it and see if we get any change or maybe even damage to either the plus or minus buttons. Okay, so we dropped a portion of a cinder block. I tried to hit exactly on the optic, got a little bit on the slide, but most of it hit the plus button, a little bit of the C&H plate, and still nothing in the glass as far as breakage or signs of weakness or giving in. The dot's still same brightness that it was when I set it on the ground. So let's see if 0 is maintained, or at least the previous adjustment of 0. Okay, so just got done shooting a 5-shot group after a side impact on the optic. The previous 0 was right in the same area. So 0 is not adjusted anymore. It's maintained, and it's very consistent, obviously, in its shooting. So far, so good. It's survived everything we have thrown at it, and still nothing wrong with the glass in any way, shape, or form. Okay, so for our last bit of torture testing, we're going to repeat the drop test on concrete from shoulder height. That's the only thing that we've seen to make any negative. It's not a big negative in my opinion yet, but it's the only thing that has mildly or adversely affected the performance of the optic. So we're going to repeat it and see if it holds up. coming back from our follow-up drop test, got a good lick on both little ears of it. Actually put a little chip in the concrete. So let's see if 0 is maintained or even close. Okay, so our final test was another drop on concrete, and man, it was a doozy. Actually chipped the concrete and hit both sides, but 0 is maintained. The up and down is definitely me because the dot is larger than my little X here. Not the best zeroing target, but the optic, no deformation, chipping, cracking, flaking, distortion in the glass. The dot, all the controls still work as you would hope they would, or as they did right out of the box. It has taken a licking and kept on ticking, if we can steal Timex's old commercial there. Good choice for the durability side. Thanks for watching our torture test of the RMRcc. Remember, train hard, your family deserves it.